When I was 5 years old, I was diagnosed with rheumatic fever. And thanks to the steroids I had to take, I blew up like the Michelin Man. It wasn't cute, and believe me, it wasn't fun. I was put on bed rest. I wasn't allowed to run and play with my friends. And for a 5-year-old, that's tantamount to torture. So when my birthday rolled around, my parents were determined to make it special. And on my big day, my dad hoisted me up on his shoulders and he carried me into the toy store to choose my present. And while I don't remember the toy that I picked, I absolutely remember that act of love. And while my illness was a low point in my young life, there were actually some good things that came out of it. My pediatrician came to our home to care for me. That's right, doctors made house calls back in the day. And he was kind, and he helped me. And not only did he heal me, because clearly my illness did not stunt my growth, his compassion and his caring, they moved me. And they made me realize I wanted to be just like him, a healer. Now, you better believe when I told my parents I want to be a doctor, they lit up. I mean, this was 1960s America, Marcus Welby time. Doctors are heroes, respected, looked up to. It's an honorable and noble profession. And my parents were so proud that their little boy was going to be a doctor. What they didn't know and what I couldn't know was that while noble and true and good, that in medicine I would find an enormous problem. And yes, there is fantastic positivity. There's healing and there's cures, and the advances of the last 50 years, I mean, they boggle the mind, they inspire the spirit. But there is an underside to medicine that has been hidden for far too long. And obscuring it is just making it worse. It's something that we don't talk about among ourselves in the medical profession, and certainly something we don't talk about with our patients. But the field of medicine is being strained, enormously strained, by a number of factors. And so today, I'd like to pull the curtain back and share with you what's ailing our doctors and what you can do to help. To begin with, the qualities that make you a great physician also are qualities that can contribute to the potential misery of that person. That's right, I said misery. It's sad, but it's true. It's heartbreaking, actually. But this is how it takes shape. First of all, perfectionists make great physicians. I mean, doctors pay incredible attention to detail. We tend to check and recheck, and then we recheck again. And while that's a quality that you absolutely want in your physician, it can make the people in your personal life a little bit crazy. Believe me, I know. And once these perfectionists arrive in medical school, that hallowed ground where you're first taught the mystery of healing the human body, they're discouraged in every way possible from asking for help. People who are drawn to medicine are devoted to taking care of the needs of others, and they tend to put the needs of others above their own nearly always. So let me bring this to life for you. I had a colleague, a cardiologist, who has severe back pain. He was in the hospital for surgery. He heard a code blue called down the hall. So he wrestled himself up out of bed and he shuffled down the hall to save a life. Then there's the OBGYN colleague who is admitted to the hospital in labor to deliver her own baby, but who leaves her bed and goes next door to assist a colleague with a difficult delivery to bring a new life into the world. I mean, these are incredible people and they never stop. So we have devoted perfectionists who've been conditioned to just suck it up, to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And they do. All-night shift? Check. No sleep? Fine. Junk food for dinner? Well, hey, at least I got to shovel something down my throat. And exercise? Well, does standing on your feet for 24 hours count? But they learn more. They also learn how to swallow their pain, how to swallow their fear of failing, their fear of letting someone down their fear of letting someone die. And doctors are people who never give up until they do. So what does giving up look like? Well, it can look like losing energy and engagement in the things that matter to you. They can become disengaged and detached from the people you care about, your family, your friends, your patients. You feel ineffective and like you can't accomplish anything. You feel like you want to quit, and sometimes they do. And there's actually a term for this state of chronic stress, and it's called burnout. And the symptoms of burnout include emotional and physical exhaustion, insomnia, loss of appetite, loss of focus, anxiety, depression, detachment. I mean, you get the gist. In fact, between 2011 and 2014, a Mayo Clinic survey showed that the percentage of physicians in this country who are experiencing at least one symptom of burnout rose from 45.5% to 54.4%. I mean, that's unacceptable. That's not okay. That's not good for our patients, and it's certainly not good for our physicians. And you're probably wondering what's contributing to this spike in burnout. Well, we know that physicians work long hours, but increasingly they're experiencing a sense of loss of control over their work. They are measured on everything that they do. And while they're dealing with matters of life and death, the complexity of medical care is just exploding every single day. And then there is the implementation of the electronic health record, which has brought many positive attributes to care delivery, but has brought with it inefficient workflows that are time-consuming and ironically take physicians away from the thing that brings them their greatest joy in practice, spending time with patients. So this can feel like a gigantic pile-on, especially for perfectionists. And remember, doctors don't ask for help. They just soldier on and do whatever needs to be done to take care of their patients. So, not surprisingly, if this isn't addressed, matters get worse. Today, many previously well-adjusted and engaged physicians are being stressed to the breaking point. They are retiring early, and they are reducing their clinical practice, or they're leaving medicine altogether. But it actually gets darker. In the last 2 years, data shows that the rate of suicide among male physicians is 40% higher than that than the general public. 40%. Now, men tend to experience burnout as detachment and disengagement. What about our women in medicine? Female physicians' rate of suicide is 130% greater than the general public. 130%. Now that is tragic, and that is unacceptable. And women in medicine experiencing burnout differently than men do. Because of their gender and their greater expectation for empathy, they tend to give and give and give until they have nothing left to give. But there's even more sobering information. The rate of suicide among physicians is similar to that of combat veterans. Actually, it's higher. Our combat veterans, heroic men and women who put everything on the line for us, who endure untold suffering and hardship. But did you realize that many of your physicians are suffering too? And so you wonder, where did this all begin? And actually, it begins in medical school, where we take these bright shining stars and we often wear them down to a dull nub. Studies show that students entering medical school actually have a higher incidence of wellness and resilience and optimism than those entering any other field of graduate study. And yet, by the time they graduate, medical students' sense of wellness and resilience and optimism is worse than that of any other graduate field. So it makes us ask ourselves, right, what are we doing to our medical students? And we've talked a little bit about that already, right? Perfectionists don't ask for help, suck it up, you're a lone ranger, you're a superhero, and your needs don't matter. But then maybe when you get out of medical school, things get better, right? But actually they don't, because your training continues. There's residency, and then there's fellowship for many. Until eventually, we have these newly minted physicians, mostly 20-somethings, with a burning desire to make a difference in the world and to do well and good for people's lives. But they're finishing their training broken down and beaten down. And this is the beginning. And these are our healers. And I know, because I'm one of them. I followed in the footsteps to be a physician, in lockstep. I did the training, I went without sleep, I ate junk, and I learned, and I suffered. But I was also inspired by the gratitude of my patients and the satisfaction of knowing I was making a difference in people's lives. And so I did more, and I asked for more and took on more, as my colleagues do. I was called to leadership, and now I'm privileged to stand before you as co-leader of one of the largest groups of physicians in the world. 21,000 doctors taking care of almost 12 million patients. And I have gained perspective. I've heard the cries. I've attended the funerals. I have felt their pain, our pain. From my vantage point, I feel the weight of the responsibility of my role, and to me, it is profound and it is sacred. I lost 2 medical school classmates to suicide before we had even finished our internship. And I have lost colleagues from my medical group, and that is incredibly painful. You know, the cardinal rule of medicine, the oath that we take as physicians, is first do no harm. First do no harm. And how can that be anything but good? But let me break this down for you. The patient is why we are here, absolutely. We are drawn to serve. But if we don't also recognize and care about the lives of those who save lives, those of us who design the systems in which we work, those of us who work side by side, those who receive care from physicians, if we don't also care about the lives of those who save lives, if we ignore the humanity of the community of those who care for others, then we are doing harm. And this epidemic, it will not stop. Now, we intuitively know this in other settings, right? You get on an airplane, they say, before you help someone else, put on your own oxygen mask. But doctors aren't doing that. And they are starving for oxygen. And this is a big problem. And if we're going to change it, we really have to change our thinking, our culture, inside and outside of the medical profession, across society. Even if it means going against the grain to do it, we have to declare our physicians' humanity. We have a path forward. We are beginning at the beginning. At Kaiser Permanente, we are opening a new medical school, and in a few years, we'll be welcoming our first class to our Kaiser Permanente School of Medicine. And these bright young minds, we're going to absolutely teach them how to be exceptional physicians, because that's non-negotiable. We're going to teach them some other things as well. We're going to teach them that their wellness matters. We're going to provide support for them and connect them with each other and resources. We're going to teach them how to set healthy boundaries for their own wellness, and about how prevention and nutrition works not just for the patients, but for themselves. And really importantly, we're going to teach them how to work within these systems to change these systems, so they're not buffeted about by the system, but they can be advocates and agents for change, to transform. And now this is really exciting stuff. I mean, it almost makes me want to go back to medical school. Almost. And this is exciting for our medical students, but what about my colleagues who've been practicing for 10 or 20 or 30, even 40 years? What about them? We must affirm their humanity too. In the medical group that I lead, we are applying these same learnings. First and foremost, declaring their wellness is essential for themselves and the wellness of our patients and our communities. And we're working on those systems that need to be improved. And we're providing greater opportunity for flexible schedules that can make their lives work. And we're teaching them about support for themselves, and that love is medicine, and exercise is medicine, and food is medicine, and sleep is medicine for themselves as well as their patients. Importantly, that their wellness matters. Now, we have a lot more to do. We have data that shows we're making some progress, moving in the right direction, but this is a complex problem. There's a lot more that we are committed to doing. And to that end, I was privileged to be invited to join a consortium sponsored by the American Medical Association last year. I joined esteemed colleagues from the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic, Duke, Vanderbilt, Stanford, Johns Hopkins. And we sat down to talk because the title of the consortium was The Joy in Medicine. But we couldn't get to the joy in medicine because we were all focused on this epidemic of burnout that we're all seeing. And so we committed that we were going to make a difference, that we would share what we've learned with each other as broadly as we can. And we continue to do that work. But we also know that that's not enough. If we're going to stem the tide of burnout, the epidemic of suicide, then all of us have a role to play. Those of us who design the systems, those of us who take part in the systems, those of us who receive care, we have to tell this story, that doctors are people too. And that may sound trite, but it's not. If we want our physicians to shine with resilience and with joy, we have to consistently affirm their humanity and the critical role that they play in caring for all of us. We need them, but you know what? They need us. We need them to recognize that in order to fulfill this noble calling to heal and save lives, they must first learn to heal and save their own. For the sake of their patients, for the sake of their families, for the sake of themselves, they must know this. They must believe this. Now, it might surprise you to hear me say this, but in spite of everything that I've shared with you today, or maybe even because of it, I still love my profession. And I want those bright, shining stars to seek it out because we need them. We need these healers, these coaches and champions of health, these brilliant minds who are dedicated to the wellness of their patients and their communities. But if we're to help them succeed, we have to help care for the lives of those who save lives. And this is a powerful way that we can do it. All of us together can think about the humanity of our physicians and how we affirm their humanity. So the next time you see your doctor, go up to him or her, look them in the eye, and say hello, and say thank you. Now, they're not good at accepting it. Say it anyway. The fact that you are aware and that you care, it matters more than you know. And the impact of affirming the humanity of our physicians to support those who care for us, the impact of one makes a difference for many. And that can make all the difference in the world. Thank you.